guys, Mr. Hudson here. I want to go ahead and finish up the MySQL installation, which we were already working on earlier, where we left off from the last video. So here we're going to secure the MySQL server basically. So it's already sitting out in the wind. We want to make sure that it's protected, right? So the default installation of the MySQL server has several features that are great for testing and development, but they should be disabled or removed for production servers. So what I mean is, this will help you basically. This is the process of setting up a root password and removing the insecure features from the installation. Even if you're not planning on using a MySQL server, performing this procedure is definitely a good idea. That's my disclosure to you guys, okay? So without further ado, let's go ahead and start up the service. Let's go say sudo service, and then you're going to say MySQL d start, okay, and it's starting up there. And then we're going to go ahead and run into the MySQL secure installation process, okay? So you're going to say sudo MySQL _secure installation. All right. So enter the current password for root. Enter for none. So yeah, there is none currently, right? So now we want to set a root password. I would recommend. So go ahead and say yes. You want to set that, and I'm going to go ahead and do that, unbeknownst to you. We're not allowed to see. And you need to retype that bad boy. So you make sure you want to save that somewhere, because that is going to be used later on when we have to do some other MySQL configurations. It's going to ask you for the root password. So definitely document that at this moment, like I am doing. And then go ahead and remove any anonymous users. You don't want anybody anonymous accessing your stuff. You want to disallow root login remotely. Yeah, there's nobody going to be accessing your stuff unless you want to have, Apache over in India trying to get into your stuff. I would recommend going ahead and disallowing this as well. Remove test database and access to it. Yeah, we don't have a test database, don't need one. We're going live. And reload privilege tables now. That's something that, that's kind of up to you. But I go ahead and I want to go ahead and reload the privilege tables and save the changes, basically, is what it's asking. So thanks for using MySQL. That's their little, wonderful message. It sounds so simple, right? Well, when you get into tables and all that, give me a call. Let me know how that's working out for you. So this is optional to stop the MySQL server. If you do not plan to use it right away, you can restart the server when you need it again. So remember, we have two different entities. You have the MySQL sitting out there, and now you have your Apache engine sitting out there, right? And so them two together work in combination with PHP in order to present your web page to the public, right? Just want to make sure I can get my throat going here. So now the other thing that we got to do, I'm going to keep it running. I'm not going to stop it right now. Now, if you want the SQL server to start after every reboot, you need to enter the following command, which we definitely do want that to happen, because if not, then you're going to end up with a down website, and I don't think that's what you get paid for. So go and enter that. Sudo check config MySQL d on. So that's telling the server every time it reboots, it's going to throw on it's going to go ahead and throw on MySQL. It's going to say, I'm coming up with you, baby. I'm coming up. And that's what you want to keep that mentality in mind. So, that, and then the HTTPD, same thing. Remember we did that earlier. Right here. Your HTTPD is on as well. That's telling your server every time it reboots, it's going to throw those engines up at the same time, because these are all independent apps, right? So now what we're going to do, now this is optional if you want to install Php Myadmin. I prefer it. I'm not going to get into that at this time. I want to make sure that everything else is going to go well, and then I may come back to that later. Again, it's optional if you feel like messing with your database. I'll create a separate video for that for you guys. Okay. So now from here, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and do the dirty, and let's go ahead and get into the WordPress, right? So let's add WordPress into our installation here. That's fine. And then go ahead and let's do wget https. We're going to go to the WordPress website .org latest.tar.gz. Okay, and it's downloading it. You see it downloaded there. Now we're going to go ahead and unzip and archive the installation package, so the installation folder is unzipped to the folder called WordPress. So we're going to say tar-xzf latest.tar.gz. So there, it extracted it. Seemed like it didn't, but it did, because now if you look, you have latest.tar.gz and you have WordPress. I believe you can remove latest.tar.gz, menu list, and then now all you have is WordPress. Okay. So let's move on. So now we need to create a MySQL user in a database for the WordPress installation that we're going to be installing. So you want to go ahead and start the MySQL server, which we already did earlier, but I'll go ahead and run it again just to double check that it's running. It doesn't hurt. It's not like it's going to stop. I'm going to say your sudo service MySQL D start. Okay, starting MySQL D. So now we're going to log into the MySQL server as the root user, and you want to enter the root password, the one that you entered a few minutes ago. Okay. So you need to remember what that is, and so now we're going to say MySQL. Forgive my fans, they're so loud. MySQL-u. Looks like I got two spaces, but -p. Okay. Oops. Hey, look at that. Didn't take it because I hit enter. So now you got to enter your actual password. And now you're into MySQL. You're actually in the MySQL database right now. I could create tables if I wanted to. So what we're going to do is create a user and password for the MySQL database, okay? And your WordPress installation uses these values in order to communicate with your MySQL database. So entering the following command, you want to substitute a unique user name and password, okay? So we'll break this down. So we're going to go ahead and create user, and I recommend using caps lock for some of this information because MySQL is down to the bracket, right? So you want to say create user, all caps, not Y user, user, and then you're going to want to go the single quote, not the double quotes, but the single quote. Okay, you say single quote, and then you want to name your user. All right, let's call him, for us, it's going to be AWS Design. Okay. And I'll change this information later, so don't try to hack into me. And then you're going to have localhost, because why? Because you're local. And then you're going to be caps lock, hit the caps lock key, and go identified by, and then you're going to want to go ahead and put a good password in here as well. Okay. Granted, you guys are going to see my password, so it doesn't quite matter for me at this moment. But I'll just put AWS admin, okay? So we got AWS Design as the user, AWS admin as the password. It could be the same for all I care, technically. All right, and then you want to add with a semicolon. You go ahead and enter, and query OK, 0 rows affected. It took 0.001 seconds. Man, that took a while. So let's go ahead and make notes of some of these things if you want. It's just what I'm going to do here, just for the sake of my sanity. I'm going to go ahead and document what I'm doing here. So the username I created is bear with me a second here. I'm almost done. Just want to add that information into my documents here so that I have it for later. And then password. Alright. So now what we want to do is go ahead and make sure you create a good password for your user. I mean, if you're going to be working on this on your own or whatnot, you definitely want to make sure that nobody else is going to be able to just run a script through your website and be able to log into your database. That's not going to be healthy. And that does happen. Excuse me, eating ice. All right. So make sure that you create a strong password. Like I said, do not use a single quote character in your password because this will break the preceding command. So if you put your password in there and you put like one of those little single bracket quotes in there, your password will literally break MySQL because it's looking at that as if it's its own command, and you don't want that. So from here, what we're going to do is go ahead and create our database, and then give our database a descriptive, meaningful name, such as WordPress-DB, whatever the heck you want it to be. You know, Mary had a lamb. I don't care. So the punctuation marks surrounding the database name and the command below that we're going to show you here in a second is called a backtick. Okay, so let me show you what I'm talking about. So go ahead and turn on your caps lock again. It's easier unless you want to hit the shift key for 20 characters. And then hit create database. Turn off your caps lock. The backtick symbol, watch my finger because you can't see my finger where it goes, but look above the tab key. Boom. There's a little dash there over that tab key on your keyboard. You want to hit that bad boy. And then you're going to type whatever the heck you want your database name to be. So it's going to be AWS Design, hallelujah for all I care, but it's just going to be AWS Design WPDB. Okay, and you're going to have to backtick again, right? And then you're going to close that bad boy out. And then go ahead and hit enter. Query OK, one row affected. Took it absolutely a whole second, not even. So you want to go ahead and go to the next queue here. Now you want to grant full privileges for your database to the WordPress user that you created earlier. So in this case, all right, we created AWS Design as our user, right? We want to give him all the access to the world and more. So we want to go ahead and say caps lock again, unless you want to hold it for 20 characters. Grant, oops, you say grant all privileges. I dropped on my page. There it is. You want to say grant all privileges on so you're going to backtick the WordPress database is AWS Design in our case, or whatever the database is that you named it. I do want to check that. Yep, and it looks correct. And you're going to close those brackets or backtick. You're going to say period star, which basically tells it everything in between, everything within that database is going to be allowed permissions, and you're going to say 2, capital 2, and then you're going to put quotation marks, actual quotation marks, and you're going to say the WordPress user, which was also AWS Design, and then quotation marks, or whatever you named your user earlier, and then @ symbol, quotation marks, local host, quotation marks, and then the semicolon. Okay, go ahead and hit enter on that bad boy. Query OK, 0 rows affected. It took it a whole 0 seconds. All right, we're on a roll. So let's go ahead and move forward. Next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and flush the privileges. So we're basically letting it all out. Just saying, hey, I've added all this crap into your database. Let's just let it all go through. So you're going to say flush privileges. Okay. Oh look, I made a mistake. Now how do you get out of that? So you're going to have to say Control C to get out. You exited, right? And then you're going to have to come back in to the actual database. So you're going to say sudo service. No, actually you'll say MySQL. MySQL -u root -password, which you're going to prompt me for. Alright, now I'm back into the MySQL, and now I need to make sure I enter that command correctly, because if not, that'll mess you up. And you don't want that. So we're going to flush privileges. And then we're going to make sure we spell it correctly. Alright, query okay. 0 rows affected. It took a whole 0 seconds. Alright, so go ahead and exit. Alright, now you're back at the main screen. See how it says bye? Hallelujah. There are little quirky things there. So now we need to create and edit the not the PH, well, it's the wp-config.php file. So the WordPress installation folder contains a sample configuration file called wp-config-sample.php. So what we're going to do now is go and copy this file and edit it to fit our specific configuration. All right. So let's copy the config.sample file to the file called wp-config. And so this will create a new configuration file and keeps the original sample file intact as a backup. So that's what we want to go ahead and do. All right, so let's go cd WordPress. We're going to go to the WordPress folder. Here we are. And then we're going to say cp, we're going to copy wp-config-sample.php. And then you don't need to put anything else, just need to tell it where it's going. So we're going to create a wp-config.php file. See that? So now we created that. So now let's go ahead and edit that file. And what we do here is I like to use nano, so we're just going to say nano wp-config.php. And look at there, all that wonderful text, right? And this I will expand because this gets a little tricky. So now what we got here, you can hardly read this, to be honest with you, but I mean, it actually looks better like this. So this is the base configuration for WordPress. The wp-config file, the wp-config file script uses this file during the installation. You don't have to use the website. You can copy this file to wp-config.php and fill in the values. This file contains the following configurations. It contains your MySQL settings, your secret keys, your database table prefix, and your abs path. So the only thing we're pretty much going to mess with is this area. We're going to talk about our DB, and then we're going to add our secure keys for caching purposes. Okay. So let's go ahead and define the DB name. What did we call it? You guys remember? HWS in our case, and whatever you might have named it on your side. Go ahead and replace that information here. Okay, and then you want to go ahead and add the user. That you created, and then you want to go ahead and add the password that you created. Alright, so you want to leave it at localhost, that's where it's at. UTF-8, that's a standard. And WB call 8, I don't even know what that is, to be quite honest with you. I think that's like concatenating. You don't need that either. Alright, so now we get to go to the api.wordpress.org/secret-key/1.1/salt, and you need to go ahead and download all of these keys for your server. So I'm going to go ahead and move off of that. Let me get over to there. And as you can see here, I didn't mean to do that. As you can see here, it's funny. Well, not funny, but it's nice that they actually, for this website, they go ahead and set it up for you. So all I got to do is copy this, highlight this, and right click, and I'm done. Just double check that your information is correct. And that didn't work. Why didn't that pull? Hold on. hold on. You gotta be careful. See where your green cursor is? You need to make sure wherever your green cursor is that it's not overwriting that. And you also want to make sure that it didn't add it below. Okay. I'm going to do it that way. Then it should have added over top of it. Let's try this one more time. I'm going to copy this, and then we're going to paste it over. Well, now I have the cursor. Huh. It's not adding them the way that I want. I'll have to do this the hard way. Like literally. Huh. Alright, give me a second. I'm going to pause this for a minute. I don't want to waste your all's time. Okay guys, I'm back. So I figured out what the issue is here. So we're going to go ahead and highlight this. You want to copy this, right? You do want to go ahead and delete all the other ones that you already have in there, because then all you're going to do now is right click on your mouse and make sure that you have this highlighted. And there, it finally dropped. All right, so that is how you do it. Okay, so you want to delete all the old ones, highlight your new information, and then go ahead and right click to drop it back in, okay? So, and double check some of this information. I mean, I know it's all a bunch of gibberish, but again, this is basically used for caching purposes. So whenever you go to a website and it caches in your browser, it actually tracks this type of information to ensure that that information is cached specifically to your browser. And that's why there's so many different configurations with this exact issue here. So let's go ahead and move on past this. So you got that done. All right. So now we can save and exit our text file. Okay. So we're going to hit Control X. So we were editing this file. Save modified buffer. Answering no will destroy the changes. Well, I don't want to destroy the changes. I'm going to say yes. Okay. It's going to say, oh wow, you created a wp-config.php file. Is that what you want to call it? Heck yeah. So hit enter. All right. So once you do that, we're going to move the installation to the Apache document root folder. So now that we've unzipped the installation folder, created a MySQL database and user, and customized a WordPress config file, we're ready to move the installation files to our server document root, so you can run the installation script that completes your installation. So the location of these files depends on whether you want the WordPress blog to be available at the root of your web server, for example, my public DNS Amazon AWS.com domain, or in a subdirectory folder such as mypublicdnsamazon.com/blog. Well, in our case, we're just going to put it in the main root folder like typically most people would do. So we'll go ahead and choose the location where we want the blog to be available, and only we're going to run the mv move command associated with that location. So if you run both sets of commands, you will get an error message on the second MV because the files you're trying to move are no longer there. All right. So let's go ahead and come here and say, we're going to say move star /var /www /html, and then go ahead and hit enter. To me that was too quick, but let's find out. Okay. And then so for security purposes, if you're not moving on to the next procedure I'm about to tell you about, stop the Apache server immediately, so that way you're not going to get hacked, because at this point your website technically ought to be up, and it is. So see, we have our site title, username, password. We can create our email, search engine visibility. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward and go into the I want to go into the permalink issue that you may run into. But what I'm trying to say is, you know, for security purposes, if you're not moving on to the next procedure immediately, you want to stop the Apache web server, the HTTPD now. And because if not, because after you move it to the installation to the document root folder, you're facing the public side now. Remember, we were internal, now we're out. So the WordPress installation script is unprotected, and an attacker could technically gain access to your blog at this exact moment if they wanted to. So that's why we want to stop the Apache web server and enter. So in that case, you would enter the command you would say sudo service httpd stop. And if you did that, and I refresh this, and then the site can be reached. Okay, so that's what that's for. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the permalinks. I do want to go ahead and start that up though, because I just want to make sure for my own peachy fuzziness that we're running okay and everything's good to go on the home front. Okay, so we're back up. So now we want to use permalinks. What are permalinks? Permalinks are basically a way for WordPress to associate itself to a more dynamic URL. For example, if I'm creating a blog and I want to name it whatever I want, I can do so with a permalink versus not being able to do so. So to us as a front-end developer, to me, when I first saw that, I didn't know what that meant. What that means is permalink allows you to give you control over what you're promoting to Google, for example. So this is where it all ties in together, right? The big circle, if you will. So whenever you're developing WordPress pages, you have the option to create a structured URL set so that you are not limited to within the constraints of WordPress. Well, a lot of times there's a limitation where you cannot make your own customized URL because it's not set as a permalink. So what we're about to do is basically enabling you to do that, to get to the point. So, and what they need to use is they use Apache.htc access files to work properly. But this is not enabled by default on Amazon Linux. So what we're about to do will override the Apache document root, okay? So let's go ahead and jump into that. All right. So we're going to come down here. Now notice I got a couple spaces. I like to kind of space things out, take a breath, go take a break if you need to. It's getting overhead, whatever. So let's go ahead and find the section that starts with the directory var www.html within the httpd.conf file. You're like, what did you just say? So basically what we're going to do is we're going to log into the server, right? We're going to dig deeper into the server right now. So I can even do this right here. We're going to go out to the top level. Oh, well, I didn't put a space. I'm going to put CD space, your little wave, as I like to call it. It'll bring you back to the top of the directory, okay? So let's go ahead and say sudo. And I don't like vim, it's telling me vim. So sudo nano, and we're going to say etc. We're going to say httpd. We're going to say conf, and we're going to say httpd.conf, and I want to look at that bad boy. Well, according to this, there's nothing in there. It says it doesn't exist. So let's go ahead and exit from that, and let's make sure that we typed our configuration correctly. So we're going to say sudo vim-etc ht, and you see what I did wrong? You guys probably saw it before I even did. We said httpd. One letter can change your world in here. So now we're going to find the section that starts with directory quote /var www/html quote in brackets. Okay, so what we can do, if you hit Control W on your keyboard, see where it says search. Now we can enter what I am looking for. To the exact letter. Not found. All right, let's do a Control W again. Let's go ahead and take out the let's see if I can just find directory. Okay. Let's put /var. Let's go ahead and exit. Okay, I made no changes, alright. We're going to go back into it. Let's just tricky. Make sure you do it correctly. So we should be able to search for directory var. Well, it acts like it's like writing it out. All right, Control X. And one last time. This time I'm just going to manually look for it. So it's going to take a little longer. Technically, you shouldn't have to do this. Let's see. Well, here's directory var www. I guess I did find that. But we're looking for the actual whole thing where it says var www html. Don't get it twisted with these other areas. Right here, see this? Directory var www html. Right after this. So it's saying, you know, within each folder it's allowing the access or not allowing the access, right? So in this one where it says allow override none, this is what you want to change where it says all. Okay? So there are multiple override lines in this file, but be sure to change the line in the directory var www/html section, okay? So now we can go ahead and save this. Notice how it says file name to write, tells you what it is, which is correct, yes. Enter. And then to fix the permissions for the Apache web server, so some of the available features in WordPress require write access to the Apache document root, such as uploading media through the administration screens. The web server runs as the Apache user, so you need to add the user to the www group that was created way back at the beginning when we did the LAMP server tutorial. So let's go ahead and add, let's get some space. Let's go ahead and add the Apache user to the www group. So we're going to do that now, all right? So we're going to say sudo user mod. I'm going to say -a -g www Apache. All right. So we've done that. And then we're going to go ahead and change the file ownership of var www and its contents to the Apache user. All right. So we're going to say sudo chown because we own that, right? And then we're going to say r Apache. And we're going to say var, and then we're going to say www. Okay. And get some error in there. And we'll say change the group of ownership of var www and its contents to the www group. So we'll say sudo. It says change group, which is ch group. And then -r recursive. And then var. And then /www. All right. And then there's some error in there. Then we're going to want to change the directory permissions of var www and its subdirectories to add group write permissions and to set the group ID on future subdirectories. So with that said, we're going to say sudo change modification of line 2775 var /www. Go ahead and enter that, get some error in there, and then find /var www, and then we'll say type D execute command sudo change mod line 2775. You're going to open and then close the brackets right away, and then you'll say a / to give it the ultimate command, and you'll say enter, and it took a second, but it took it. And then you're going to say recursively you want to change the file permissions of the var www and the subdirectories to add the group write permissions on line 664. So let's go ahead and do that. You're going to say find /var www type f execute sudo chmod 0664, open and close the parentheses as you do it, and got the wrong command because I got too ahead of myself. So let's double check that. www, look at that, I got too many W's, and it's still not working. And it's probably because I don't have it. Dash there. There, it took it on that one. All right. So that's going to take a second. And then you're gonna want to go ahead and restart the Apache web server to pick up the new group permissions. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do a sudo service httpd. You're going to say restart. Stopping and starting, it's okay. And then you're going to want to say to run the configuration WordPress configuration script. You're going to say sudo. You're going to say check config httpd on, and you're going to say sudo check config httpd, or actually no, I'm sorry, MySQL d on, and then you're going to say sudo. You want to check your services, right? So you want to say sudo service MySQL d status. And then you're going to say, you can do up arrow, and then you can do httpd. Oh, I didn't do it correctly. There it is, running. Both instances of apps are running. So now you ought to be able to come back over here, refresh, and now you should be able to select everything that you need to get started. Where are we at? We're in the United States. What's our site title? It's going to be Hudson Web Studio. What's the username I want? Primary is going to be Chad B. I'll make it since I'm publicized right now. Crap. Let's just keep it as that, huh? Since I'm public. So we want to discourage search engines. Username will be user. And we're going to go ahead and install WordPress. And you're in. You don't need delete. You don't need this. You can delete that. You don't need Hello Dolly. I want to say you don't even need that. But this concludes the episode of installing WordPress on an EC2 instance. Feel free to check out our other videos that we're going to be publishing. Next, I'll show you how to go ahead and update the DNS settings on here so that now it will point to the actual domain name instead of this long, extensive URL, which we don't need. Well, thank you for watching and have a great day.